name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Remembering Woodstock. Our special guest today is lead singer guitarist Randy Linder from the Seattle-based Creedence Clearwater Revival tribute band, Creedence Revelation. Now, you're based out of Washington, is that correct, Randy?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and now let me ask you, so let's get right into this. Let's tell the story, Randy, of how you first became a CCR fan. I mean, do you remember the song, the album, when you first got into the band?
Yes, I do, actually. I was raised in the town of Shelton, Washington.
Wow.
And I remember the very first album that I ever bought was the Green River album by Creedence.
Wow.
And I bought it at a Safeway store in Shelton, Washington. I wish I still had that album cover. I have another old album cover of that, but I don't think it's the same one.
Yeah.
It could possibly.
Wow,
I'm not sure if it's the same one or not.
Yeah. That's amazing. And now let me ask you, because last time I'd interviewed you, Randy, I think it was in 2015, and at the time you were just known as Randy Linder, a John Fogerty Tribute artist. Now, since then, the band is going by the name of Creedence Revelation. Let's talk a little bit about that, because what's interesting about your career as a tribute artist, like I said, for years you were just known as Randy Linder, your name, and you became one of probably the first, I dare say, premier John Fogerty tributes, because, and what I mean by that is there were not a lot of, CCR tributes at that time. They've a lot more are starting to pop up now, over the last couple of years, but talk a little bit about that, because I think that's quite an accomplishment, for people to kind of know you just by your own name when you're doing the tribute thing,
Yeah, and it worked good to do that for a while because it got my name out there.
Yeah.
I did, early on I did several gigs in Las Vegas and Laughlin and so on, and it was good getting my name out there. But my wife, Bridget, and I came up with the name Creedence Revelation.
Yeah.
I don't know, 3 years ago or whenever it was, and we did that to make it a little easier for the billing.
Yeah.
Because the name itself describes what it is, whereas, when I was using my name, there always had to be a little more verbiage to describe that it's a Creedence tribute.
Yeah.
So it's worked out good so far. I'm glad I did it the way that I did, though. I'm glad I did it with just my name for a while, but I'm also glad that we changed it.
Yeah. Like I said,
that goes.
To me, as somebody that observes this stuff, is that's pretty smart on your part, because, like you said, it got your name out there. People start knowing Randy Linder. Oh, he's the guy that does the John Fogerty tribute. But as you said, a lot of other tributes to John Fogerty and CCR are starting to pop up the last few years. And it's all, so now the name Randy Linder is going to be associated with Creedence Revelation, and what I dig about that is there's no doubt in the name who you're paying tribute to. Revelation is kind of interesting in the fact that I've seen other tribute bands, like there's this one that's popping in my head that goes by the name of Fortunate Son, and a lot of times tribute bands will name after a song or an album. So this is kind of again getting your name out there. And it's somewhat of an original name. I dig it, People know what it is.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it too. And another thing that's good about it is, like, in the past, before we changed the name, I have a number of T-shirts that were part of an event that we played, and my name would be on the T-shirt.
Wow.
But they didn't have any more room to say to expound on that it's a tribute to CCR. And then I have T-shirts from since we changed the name, and it's just so much cooler to
have that merchandise.
The Creedence Revelation on there than just my name.
Yeah,
so it's worked out good.
I think so. Now, of course, being a CCR fan, I'm sure you've I'm sure you've seen video clips over the years of CCR's performance at Woodstock, and I was kind of curious because for years, like I've heard John Fogerty talk about it. Like for years, he didn't want the band's performance, released on video or included in the film. As a fan, what are your thoughts on that?
I've always been aware that he didn't want to put it out either, put on the film and stuff, and it's because they were on much later than they thought they would be in the night. It was like, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 3 a.m. or something, and they had to wait until Grateful Dead was done, and they went way over time, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard very much the same thing. For a little bit I know about the situation is, like you said, the Grateful Dead went on before CCR, and they were kind of upset about the fact that they were one of the first bands to sign on to the event, and I know John specifically is talking over years about the fact that they had a bunch of people in the audience. They were asleep. Nobody's really paying attention to what we're doing.
Yeah.
But and that must get frustrating as a performer. But I tell you, I don't know if you had a chance, but this last year they released finally a nice little CD of CCR live at Woodstock, and I thought it was a pretty good performance. So I'm glad they finally getting that out there. At least so the fans can have a little souvenir from that time period.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good performance too. Everything that I've seen some stuff on YouTube of them doing some of the songs. I remember he wore this little fringed vest.
Yeah.
I remember what he wore for that. But yeah, like Keep On Chuglin was one of the songs that they did there, and I've seen the performance of that, and it was a good performance. It's too bad that they're not in the movie.
Yeah, and 1969 is very interesting because if you got that CD live at Woodstock that they just put out last year, if you look at the set list on there, they got like Bad Moon Rising, and they got Proud Mary, of course, but a lot of other hits we know, were not even around then, or they weren't performed. But it's a great set. So like if you want to check out some of their earlier hits, kind of some of the deep cuts, that's a great CD to check out because you're kind of getting stuff from very early on in their career. Yes,
I should do that because I haven't actually listened to that CD, but I've read the set list before and aware. I've played all the songs on that set.
Yeah, and
for sure.
And of course, it's like it's now 51 years since the actual Woodstock event. That's quite an accomplishment. And just so you know, Randy, in case you're interested, I know I ordered a CD myself. You can get it off of Amazon, so that's one place you can go. But I was curious, so what was it? I imagine like a lot of musicians, Randy, you probably did the original music thing for a while, so let's talk a little bit about that.
About doing my own original stuff?
Yeah, I was curious if you've always been a tribute artist, or if you've ever, if you tried to go the route of doing your own original music first.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely have not always been a tribute artist. I started my first band playing covers when I was in 8th grade, and that was 1968.
Oh, wow. That's right around the time we're talking, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't start the tribute act until the year 2000.
Yeah.
So I played clubs and so on, for years and years, and I've also done a fair amount of writing and recording my own songs, but I've never tried to make that
your main gig.
Business.
Yeah.
It's
hard to do it, and that's why I got to
make money off of what you write.
I got to tell people listening that I have a lot of respect for tribute artists. I myself have been meant to see many of these tribute shows, and if you get the chance to see a good tribute band or good tribute artist, I like to call it rock and roll theater. Even in your case, I go on your Facebook page, and man, you really look like John Fogerty. I played some of some of your video clips, and man, it's like seeing CCR in concert. You dress the part. Playing the songs are really authentic. You look the part, and that's really important to me when you're paying tribute to somebody, because I'll be honest, there are bands that they don't dress the part, and very equally good as far as just playing the music. But you go to like one of your concerts, and you're a CCR fan. You as best you can. You try to look the part, and that really is rock and roll theater. And it's so good that maybe when somebody's coming to one of your shows, Randy, it takes them back to the first time they heard a CCR song or John Fogerty song on the radio. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, I seen a Guns N' Roses tribute band here called Hollywood Roses years ago, and the guy, you'd swear was Axl Rose from 1987. He looks so much like the part. The guitar player looks so much like Slash. And that's probably as close as I'm ever going to get to seeing Guns N' Roses, because if they come to my town ever again, I mean, you got to pay so much money just to go see the real thing. So sometimes that's as close as you're going to get.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on all of that, and that's why I've always been proud to do what I do, because that what you just said is so true, and I have, I sell merch after my shows, and I have so many people come up right after the show that just thoroughly enjoyed it, and they tell me how much it brought them back, and then they always tell me when they saw him, or if they met him, or if they know him now, or whatever, and John, of course, and but yeah, I've always been proud of what I do for that reason, because like you said, there's so many people that are fans of a certain band, and maybe they never saw them and they never will, but they got to do that, and that at least got them thinking about it.
And another thing people got to consider is, like you're saying, the fans, like especially CCR and John Fogerty, the fans are so diehard that when they do come to one of your concerts, I mean, they're really looking to see, okay, does this guy, is he really playing the role? I mean, has he really got it down? I mean, you play one bad lick on the guitar, or there's one thing that doesn't look like John Fogerty to them, they're gonna pick up on it. But again, and that's why you got to be that good. And I hear people so many times saying, and I do not agree with this. I'll just go on the record saying, but they say there's a belief out there that people that play in tribute bands are failed musicians that couldn't make it doing their own music.
I've heard that too.
But like you pointed out, like for anybody to make it in show business, first of all, it's a very hard thing to do. You got to have connections, got a certain amount of talent and luck. It's a matter of being sometimes at the right place at the right time. You're talking to a guy, Randy, I can't play a lick of music. So for you to get up on stage and do what you do, I got all the respect in the world, So I will just go on record as saying that. But once you made that decision, you were going to go from covers, and you realize, okay, I'm not going to maybe really make it doing my own original thing. What was the point where you decide, okay, I'm gonna try to pay tribute to John Fogerty and CCR? Was it a matter of people telling you looked like the guy, or you sounded like him, or was it more of just your love for that music?
It's a little bit of all of that, actually. I've been a fan from the start. 1968 is when I started my first band, and that's when they came out. With Susie Q and I Put a Spell on You. And but it also was a case where through the 90s was when I actually developed the voice to be able to sing the CCR stuff with the gravel in the voice.
Wow.
Prior to that, I've been singing all along, but I hadn't learned how to sing that way, and I started singing songs as much as I could, like the person I was doing the cover of. In the mid to late 90s, and so I was told by 2 or 3 musician friends of mine that I should start a tribute band to CCR, and at that time I hadn't really come to the realization that tribute bands was a real thing. I had always heard of Elvis tributes, but not so much other tribute bands. So I was kind of not going for the idea for a while there, and then I got hired to be the guitar player in a Hank Williams tribute.
Wow!
At a state fair, and this was a state fair that I had never played at with my cover band. You know, it was a pretty cool gig. It was a concert, and the crowd was a good sized crowd that really got into this show, and the front man for the Hank Williams tribute was a friend of mine, and he got so much adulation at that show and stuff, and people loved it, and I thought, man, here I just got to play it at this fair that I've never played at, and it was so fun, and the crowd liked it so much, and that the next day is when I decided I'm going to go ahead and do that tribute thing.
Wow.
And that was 1999.
And you know, that was an interesting time, because that's when a lot of it, you know, tribute bands were starting to really be big business and popping up all over the place. But I think, you know, the thing about you doing a tribute to CCR and John Fogerty is when you started, there were not a lot of those bands paying tribute to CCR or John Fogerty. It's one of the neat thing too is, when I started, I became aware real fast after looking at whatever videos I could of other tribute bands that I was the only one where the John Fogerty guy did what John Fogerty did. I play all the lead guitar and the harmonica, and I dress the part, and so on. And so even if you look right now, you look on YouTube, you look at all the videos you can find of CCR tribute bands. I don't know if you're going to find one where the guy who's doing the singing is also playing all the lead parts. That's interesting.
I do that.
That's interesting. And you know, I think the other thing about this, especially doing a tribute to CCR, is I will tell you, you're talking to a guy, Randy. I didn't come into the world until 1971, but I remember growing up as a kid hearing these songs on the radio all the time. And I mean, we're talking about this stuff 50 years after it first came out, you know, today. And even though I wasn't there in the beginning, I mean, the songwriting was just so good that you know, you can't deny it. Doesn't necessarily matter what generation you come from. You hear any of this stuff, and it's just an instant connection to it, you know?
And like you say, for a lot of people that weren't even around when it first came out, there's a lot of fans that are not my age, but
they come to a show.
The neat thing is, there's a lot of fans that are my age. I do a lot of gigs in Arizona at retirement communities that have their own venues, and they have tribute bands there all the time. And so there's a huge market for my group at retirement communities.
Wow, amazing!
And these people aren't. They're not all real old either. They're very spry people. You know, and they just love it. But also, when I play somewhere like where there's all age groups, there's a lot of people in their 30s and 40s that just love the stuff.
And you know,
they grew up with it, but it wasn't new stuff when they grew up with it.
And that's why you know, tribute acts, and especially what you're doing, that's why it's so popular. It's one thing to go see a new band, and who doesn't love to go see a new band, or even one of these you know, bands that we grew up on, you know, listening to. But the thing is, like, a lot of times you go see a new band and maybe putting out their first album, and you don't really know any of the songs yet, but somebody goes to one of your shows, Randy, they know these songs. They, like I said, even with my experience, heard them on the radio thousands of times. So they see an advertisement that you're going to be playing a gig. They kind of know what they're going to get when they come to the show, and then they're listening to you. They're rocking out to what you're doing on stage, and they're singing right along with you, you know?
I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody comment that they came to see the show not having any idea how many Creedence songs that they have always liked, because they hear them all in a row, and they realize that they knew every single one of those songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, it's good when if you're gonna do a tribute to a band, it's best to pick a band that has a lot of hits.
Yeah, and it's amazing because if anybody knows the backstory of Creedence, I mean, two of the guys were brothers, and the other three went to school together, and you know, the brothers really hated each other, and the other two guys and John, they became, you know, mortal enemies, so to speak. But a lot of this music, you know, there was always that friction, from what I understand, between the band members from early on, you know, once they started seeing success. And it's interesting because oftentimes you'll hear, well, you know, friction in a band kind of makes for beautiful music. And I got to say, in these guys' case, it sure did.
Yeah, and it's too bad that happens, but that's just life.
Yeah.
In the case of Creedence, and it's the same in a lot of other big groups, that John just became the focal point.
Yeah.
And that's not usually something that the other band members knew was going to happen when it starts.
Yeah.
But then it gets that way, and then there's friction sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, John's got a right to be the way he is, or have his own feelings. But I think another problem was, too, that he didn't kind of want to share any of the credit with other, because I've heard him in interviews over years, like, talk about, oh, you know, people call these Creedence songs. No, they're John Fogerty songs. I wrote them. The other guys had nothing to do with, you know, and so.
Right.
Yeah, and so but like I said, he sure has written some great music. So I mean, you know, we love him for that. But it's kind of even. I mean, I got the book he put out a few years ago, and I was amazed because, like I said, especially between him and his older brother Tom, there was friction for years. Even after Tom died, he'd kind of not talk too favorably about him. But finally, in the book, he kind of says, you know what? I kind of got over being mad at my brother. He's dead now, and I hope that one day, you know, when my time comes, me and him will meet up. I thought, okay, after all these years of kind of having that hatred, that's good that you can kind of say that, you know.
Yeah, that I read that too, and that's kind of cool. And it's a shame that there has been and is all that friction, but it's certainly not the only band that has friction. A lot of bands do.
Yeah, it's just interesting. And then I guess part of what he said, that between him and his brother, there's kind of like in any time you have like sibling rivalry, like they were always competing. Like Tom thought he was going to be a lead singer, and John kind of takes over. And but Tom
was a little older, and he got an earlier start than John did.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, in a lot of ways, Tom Fogerty was older than the other three guys, and he was kind of recording music early on, and he let these guys play on some of his early albums. So in a way, he helped them get their start. But I do have to say, I don't think all the credit should go to John or Tom. I think everybody brought something to the band, and a perfect example of that is, you know, if John Fogerty wants to admit it or not, once his brother left the band, I mean, they did one more album with just the three of them. It was their worst-selling album, and the band kind of folded up. And I think that just goes to show, it's not the fact that Tom Fogerty left, but I think if any one of them would have left the band, you know, you'd have had the same situation.
I agree with that, yes. Yeah, it's and you can see what everybody brought to the band by watching some of the live footage from the old shows.
Yeah, I mean,
there's this one live album where they played in England, and I think it's just it might be just called The Concert. Or
yeah. I think I've seen that.
Anyway, that's a really, really good album, and it's recorded live, just the four of them, and just by listening to that, you can tell right off the bat that what each one of them did is what made that sound.
Yeah, and Doug Clifford, I think he's always been underrated as a drummer. He's been one of my all-time favorite drummers. And Stu, I think, great bass player. I mean, you just can't deny that riff, like in Down on the Corner, that bass riff. I mean, it runs all through that song. What a great riff.
Yeah. That's true. That it wouldn't have been the same if it wasn't those particular four people that were the band. Yeah,
and it's kind of interesting if you read the book that John put out. He was even saying that he did not realize until his brother left the band. He said, you know, Tom, for the most part, you know, I kind of count on him to do the right thing, but I realized once he left, it was, you know, those two guys against me, and then I think he realized kind of when his brother left that the band wasn't the same, because he kind of, in a way, he forced the band to break up, because he's like telling the other two, I'm not going to sing on any of your songs. You're going to sing all your songs. He was almost like he wanted it to fail, like he was time to move on. It was time for him to move on too, at that point.
Yeah, he actually. I listened to a recording of John. I'm trying to think of what it was, but anyway, it described a lot of. He was describing a lot of his life, and a lot of it was quite unhappy. During after he got famous and stuff, he was quite unhappy a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'd heard one point that I wasn't aware of this until just a couple years ago, but apparently he was a severe alcoholic for several years. I mean, I think it was during until he met his wife that he's married to now, but before he hooked up with her, he was very severely depressed. That was that time when he went like 10 years playing any CCR songs in concert, and I guess Jerry Garcia kind of made him realize, hey, don't deny your fans. That's the music they love. That's the music they grew up on. You're denying your fans.
Yeah, that's very true. That reminds me of well, of course, there are so many stories of entertainers being alcoholics and so on. It reminds me of are you aware of Graham Parsons?
I've heard the name, yeah, but I'm not as up on.
Well, he was he died at age 26, but he was a good friend of the Rolling Stones.
Oh wow!
Him and Keith Richards wrote that song "Wild Horses."
Oh, okay, yeah, wow.
But he was an entertainer, and he was in the Byrds.
Oh, okay, that's where I heard the name. Okay, yeah.
And there was a time when he was due to play a gig with the Byrds, and he was at a Rolling Stones recording session in L.A., and he was passed out on the floor because he was drunk and high on heroin, and Chris Hillman from the Byrds came over to get him, and he pulled him off the floor, and Mick Jagger admonished him. He told him that don't deny your fans. Here, you've got a responsibility to your crowd, and you have a gig today, and here you are laying on the floor at our recording studio.
Yeah. And these days it's kind of really gone the other way, to the extreme. And for 10 years of his career, he wasn't playing those songs. He wanted nothing to do with his CCR past. Just kind of forging ahead as a solo artist. And it's interesting because these days, I don't know if you had a chance. He put out the CD. I just recently got it. Of all these CCR classics, I forget what he's calling it, but he's redone with his kids.
Yes. Yeah, he just put that out in the last few months, and he's just doing a bunch of the hits. And
it's interesting because
with his kids.
And it's interesting because we've heard all these songs millions of times before, like I said, but he's putting a new spin on these classic tunes, which makes it that much more fun because we're not getting the same. This is a little something just for fun,
Yeah, and I don't even think there's drums on those songs, if I'm not mistaken. It's just
guitars. I think.
His daughter is one of the people that's playing there too. So there's the two sons and a daughter.
Yeah.
I don't remember if there's drums on that album.
I'm not sure, but I have to look at that. But it's just kind of interesting. He's going, and I also got a Red Rock CD from a couple of years ago of John Fogerty, like doing all stuff throughout his career, and it's a live concert, and I guess you can get on DVD too. But just man, he's really living in his past now. As far as playing all these great tunes, so you gotta love him for that,
Yeah, I think it's neat that he's doing that, and I also think it's neat that he's still performing. He's 8 years older than I am.
Wow.
And, that gives me confidence that you can still do it as you get older. When I started my tribute act, in the year 2000, I didn't have any idea that I'd still be doing it in 2021.
Yeah, amazing.
I figured at that time, maybe I'll be able to do it for another 10 years. And here it's been 20 years now.
Yeah. And
so that's cool.
Yeah. So let me ask you, when you first started, I mean, you really looked the part. So as far as, getting the clothes, was that hard? Did you have a lot of these clothes already kind of in your...
That was the easiest thing in the world, because it's just such it's easy to find something to wear
like
for
that.
a John Fogerty concert.
Yeah.
All I do is I have an array of different plaid shirts.
Yeah.
And I've got the scarves, which are easy to find, and then I also wear something that John wore at pretty often, was just a denim, like a light blue denim shirt.
Yeah.
Scarf too. But all of that stuff you can find very easily, and that's all you have to do. Now, on some of the pictures of him, if you look at the old pictures, he wore black leather pants.
Yeah.
So I do that as well. I got some leather pants, but those are easy to find too.
Yeah.
So it was easy to figure out the costuming.
Yeah. And not cost too much at the same time. That's cool. And let me ask you. So you mentioned when you first gave it a shot at this tribute stuff, you were playing guitar at a state fair in a Hank Williams tribute. So what was it like to go from kind of being the sideman in that to being up in front and center and having all eyes on you?
I personally was already really used to it, because in the cover bands that I had always had, I was always the front man anyway, so I was used to that. But what the part that was really a change for me that I really enjoyed is, rather than performing for people on a dance floor and trying to keep people dancing, what I really liked was the fact that it's a concert, and all of the people came there specifically to watch and hear the performance. And I really, as soon as I did that one concert with this other band and saw that happening, I really decided, boy, if I could do that instead of what I've been doing all this time, that would be much better. And it is, and it pays a lot more too.
Yeah. And just from the pictures I look on your Facebook page and that, I mean, you really look a lot like John Fogerty. I don't know if that's just kind of your natural look or if you have to work too hard at it, but that's kind of cool, because I mean, you were very convincing as far as if people want to go on and look at those photos, or even go to one of your shows. I think they'll be this guy, he's paying tribute to John Fogerty, no doubt about it. Yeah,
well, it's not hard for me to do, and if you A/B the sound of my voice or my look, if you look picture beside picture and listen to the voice, in my mind, it definitely is not spot on, but it's there. What I've always said is that it's close enough to make the people have the comments that they have after the show, which convinces me that regardless of what I think, it's close enough to do the job.
It's working, that's what I'm saying. I mean, and if anybody reads a review, like I'm sure of it, like, this guy, he looks the part, he sounds the part, he does not disappoint, and that's a big part.
A funny thing, about 3 weeks ago, I was in Cancun, Mexico on vacation.
Wow.
And I had a guy that I've never seen in my life. I was just standing by the swimming pool in my swimming suit.
Yeah.
And I had this Latin fellow come up to me, and he thought I was John Fogerty.
Amazing. Yeah.
And
wow.
And I said, it's funny you might say that, because I'm certainly not trying to look like John Fogerty today, but I am in a John Fogerty Tribute band, so he wanted my website and stuff. And
Wow.
I gave it to him, but that surprised me because
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be John Fogerty down there.
Yeah.
Doing that for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story about that. I know a guy that for years he was making a living paying tribute, like in an Aerosmith tribute, and he played the role of Steven Tyler. Not only did he have a look down, but I mean everything down to the guy's talking voice. That he sounded like Steven Tyler when he talked, and he told me I actually had a chance to meet Steven one year when he was at a party. He had that place in Hawaii or something, and he's like, he heard about me, invites me to his party at his house, and he goes, man, I look so much the part and sounded so much like him. We played a trick on his own son, thought he was talking to his dad, and Steven was kind of hiding in the background. He's like, just think about that.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. But yeah, and let me ask you.
That happens.
Yeah, let me ask you, Randy. When you first started doing this, how long did it take you? I mean, I know you're already doing cover tunes, but how long did it take you to come up with a set for the CCR stuff and John Fogerty? I mean, till you kind of mastered these songs, till you like, okay, I'm ready to put the show on now.
Right. Well, I would say that I probably rehearsed that for maybe 4 months or so.
Oh, that's good. And I really urge people that are listening to this to go and check out your stuff on YouTube and your Facebook page, because you really look the part, and it'll leave them wanting to go see every. Now, do you get a chance much to? It sounds like you do, to tour outside of your local area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably more than. I play more shows outside my local area than I do inside, of course.
Yeah.
Not lately, though. The last show that I did was March 15th in Idaho.
Wow.
Because that's when everything got shut down, and there just is no such thing around where I live.
Yeah. And I guess it's harder to do, like, as a tribute act, but have you given any thought to doing any kind of, like, live stream event, even, like, doing a Q&A with people just saying, hey, we're still here and thinking of you or whatever?
I've thought about it, but I haven't really wanted to do it for some reason. I'm not sure why, but my thinking for myself personally is just to wait it out.
Yeah.
Come back. I'm not worried about keeping the reputation going, because I don't really live on my reputation.
Yeah.
I live on Creedence reputation.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
It's not going away. So
yeah,
as soon as it's time to do shows again, there will be an audience.
Yeah, and see, as long as we're talking about your reputation, I mean, the fact that the name Randy Linder is already associated with Creedence and John Fogerty all these years,
right?
You don't have to really worry about that much. It's just, if anything, people just wanting to come and see the show. And and I will tell you, I've talked to other musicians in bands, and they tell me, we done like a live event. Like I interviewed this a singer from Armored Saint. It's a metal band, but anyways, he was telling me, we did a live show downtown LA at the Whiskey, but we weren't allowed to have any audience members, and it wasn't really the saying we'd much rather from now on wait to do like a live concerts again.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. I just don't really look forward to the idea of playing for no audience and trying to make it look like there is an audience. That's hard to do. And I'm sure the bulk of your show is like CCR tunes, but do you also like throw in a John Fogerty solo song every once in a while? Yes, we do 2 or 3 of them. Let me see, we do Center Field, which
that's great.
John Fogerty solo song.
Yeah.
And Old Man Down the Road, we do that one in the show. And let me see, Rock and Roll Girls, that's another one. Oh, I love all those. Now the Old Man Down the River, I'm sure you know the famous story about being sued by his own record company for sounding too much like CCR. That's got to be the funniest thing, Yeah, sounding too much like Run Through the Jungle. I think it is. I remember him talking about for years. I tell that story on stage. Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing him talk about it for years, like the fact that he had to get up in court and play the 2 songs to just
Yeah, I'm the guy that wrote those tunes, but that's why it sounds so much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also mentioned on stage when we do center field that John Fogerty is the only musician that let me see, what's the deal now? He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Because of center field.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that, but that's so cool. And yeah, and you know, I remember seeing this thing on VH1 years ago. It was called Legends, and it was kind of about the CCR story and the fact that he's talking about when he came back with center field in 1985. That's the time when we were talking about he refused to play any of those songs for 10 years. He's coming out back as a solo artist for the first time in 10 years, and he's like, you know, this is the first album I put out like in 10 years, and I wasn't sure how the public's going to react to me, but you know, I was kind of like, you know, is there still really people really interested in music from me? And he's like, you know, I almost felt like I was being given a second chance.
Yeah, and he has been given a second chance. He's still very popular.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I said, this music really never dies, and it's one of those bands. It's what amazes me more than anything. Not just Vin fighting in the band, but the success they were able to have in spite of that the band was around for just a couple years, and this music 50 years later is still being played on the radio.
Yeah, all of those hits that I do in my show were they came out in the span of 4 years, from 1968 to 1972.
Yeah, and you know, like I love some of the songs that aren't as, but like Up Around the Bend, Lodi was another song I always kind of loved, and I don't know if you're aware of the band Tesla. They did a cover of that. They did a kind of cool little cover.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody listens to
that. I got to play Lodi in Lodi several times. And that was always cool.
Yeah, and I guess part of what that song's about is that's where the brothers grew up. Like I used to have an aunt that lived in Lodi, it's a little tiny kind of town right around Sacramento. But you almost miss, you know, driving through. You might not notice it. It's so little.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I want to thank you, Randy, for taking time to share your story with us today, and I will let you know the minute this interview gets posted, and we'll just keep in touch and maybe do it again. But thanks so much for speaking with us today.
Well, I really appreciate it.
Okay, take care, my friend. I'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.